everyone, welcome to the OklaRoots YouTube channel. In today's tutorial, we're going to just have some fun. We're just going to have some fun playing with some fabric, kind of adapting, maybe hacking a pattern a little bit, and we're going to make a bag that I think is going to be perfect for summer. Today, we're going to make this adorable clear tote bag, and the pattern for this comes to us from I Think So. It's called the Freya Strappy Tote Bag. Now, the pattern we're using, we are going to be adapting it a bit. So if you look at the pattern, you'll see it is for an all cloth bag. It has a lining, it has a lot of different pockets. We're gonna leave off a lot of that, but we are gonna use the pattern pieces and we are gonna use some of the instructions. So let me just walk you through this bag real quick. First, in the pattern, there are two sizes. There's a tall size and a wide size. Today, I'm gonna be making the wide size. You can alter this as much as you want. I'll show you what this bag looks like on in just a moment. I would say it's like a mid-sized tote. But if you need something bigger because you're going to the beach and you got a lot of people with you and you got to carry all their stuff, you could definitely add some inches to the width. You could add some inches to the height. And this is all rectangles, so that would be pretty easy to do. But let me just walk you through this bag real quick. On the front, I'm doing a little slip pocket here. Totally optional. You can leave it off if you want. You can see on this version here that I did it using water-resistant canvas. Today I'm actually going to use some vinyl, so like one piece of clear vinyl. I'm going to put some binding. I just want to show you that you can really have fun with this. Get really creative with this. On the back, you see I decided not to have a slip pocket, so I just have the clear vinyl, and this is a great bag if you have a printed clear vinyl to have a lot of fun with. On the bottom exterior, I am using a vinyl. This is a pretty... It's not sticky, but it is a thicker vinyl, so I'm going to try using a much more thin vinyl today. However, I would highly suggest you stick with vinyl for the exterior bottom. It's just going to be easiest to clean, and it's going to provide a lot of structure without any sort of interfacing. I'm going to flip it around. You can see we have our straps running along the top here. We have a magnetic snap. You can leave it off if you want. If you're going to be using a magnetic snap, though, I would suggest you use the one that goes with the rivet press, not the ones with the prongs. Because you can see there's no lining or anything, so you have the snap part on the inside, and then on the outside, you'll have just the rivet. And then on the inside, we have a little bit of water-resistant canvas on the bottom because I did want a lining. I didn't just want the back of the vinyl for the bottom, so we have a bit of a lining there. And then we have some binding that goes around the seams on the inside, and then also some binding that goes around the top. This was just a bag that I've been thinking about for a while. There's a lot of different variations of this same design out there, but I couldn't find exactly what I was looking for. So I went snooping around on the internet trying to find a tote bag that was the design I wanted and to see if I could change it around. And this was a really quick, easy change. I'm gonna walk you through all of it. It's really fun. So if you're new to the OklaRoots YouTube channel, please consider clicking subscribe down below. If at any point you like this video, please give it a like. Any questions, comments, shoutouts, leave them down in the comment section down below. If you have another pattern that's like a clear tote bag, put them down in the comments. I know we've done a lot of clear vinyl projects on the channel lately, and I was gonna say this is the last clear vinyl project of 2023 for me. It's probably not because I still have a lot of clear vinyl and I've got to find something to do with all of it. So this is one for the summer, though, that I think is going to be... I think this is a really, really great bag. I wouldn't say it's totally beginner-friendly because clear vinyl just is a little tricky. But if you've made the Bobby Boxy crossbody or the Bobby Boxy pouch or the Boxy pouch, the two-tone clear Boxy pouch, if you've worked with clear vinyl before, I think you'll be fine. Especially if you've already worked with clear vinyl in a zipper, you're gonna be fine with this bag. It's just bigger, that's all, but there's nothing really intricate about it. Okay, so it's a tote bag, and I don't normally show tote bags on, but I will show it on just so you can see the size of it. I'm 5 feet 4 inches, size small or medium, and this is what it looks like on me. So I can wear it over my shoulder. It comes down to just above my hip. I do have a long torso, though. I have a very long torso, so this is where it hits on me. So you can see, again, I would say like a mid-sized tote bag. It's not a big one. We've made some pretty big tote bags on here. This is not a huge one, but it is a mid-sized one that will be really easy to wipe down and keep clean at the beach or the pool or the grocery store. All right, guys, let's get started. All right, so for my bag today, I'm gonna be using just a basic vinyl for the bottom of the bag and then a clear vinyl for the top part. Now, I'm using a totally clear vinyl. This just has like a paper backing on it. Let me show you. This is just a totally clear vinyl with paper backing. This clear vinyl is from Biani. I love this clear vinyl. I think it's fantastic. If you wanna use a printed one, absolutely go for it. You see mine is very busy already, so I was trying to kind of limit the busyness of the clear part. So I'll be using this fun rainbow vinyl on the bottom, and then I'll be using this clear vinyl on the top. For the inside of the bag, I'll be using this water resistant canvas. And then for the slip pocket on the front, I'm gonna be using this cute jelly clear vinyl. I'm gonna walk you through how I decide the measurements for this. I'm not going to give you the measurements because those are in the pattern, but I will tell you what adjustments I make to them so you can have a better understanding of what to do if you wanna do it like me. Honestly, when it comes to how much of everything, I'm going to suggest you get a yard of everything just because you don't know what size bag you're going to want to make. You might decide you want yours to be actually a bit wider, a bit taller. So I'm going to suggest a yard of each of these. Slip pocket, obviously, I mean, this is the size that I used. It's a very small amount. But I always like to have a yard of material because if I make mistakes or if I want to make another item to go with it, I have enough to do that. You know what I mean? Okay, next I have some water resistant canvas binding. I didn't measure it. I would suggest at least 3 yards. Again, it's always good to have more than you need than not enough. And then for the straps, instead of making my own like the pattern does, I'm just gonna use some webbing. This is 1.5 inch wide webbing. If you have 1 inch webbing, use that. If you prefer 1.5 inch, use that. Again, this is a real fun project. Just use what you have. I would suggest at least 3 yards of this webbing as well. I have my bag tag, which comes from Heartwood and Hide. Next, I'm going to be adding some rivets this time. I didn't add it on the first bag, but I think I'm going to add these to the strap just for a little bit more reinforcement. These are completely optional though. Also optional is a magnetic snap. The magnetic snap is nice to have on the top of the bag to just pinch it closed. However, if you're going to be using the clear vinyl and everything, you're going to want to use magnetic snaps that have the little rivet backing, which means you will need your cam snap press in order to set them. So here's all the other stuff I'll be using today. Like I said, I have my rivet press here. I prefer the Cam Snaps rivet press. If you're interested in how I use it, all the dies I like to use with it, I have a whole video going over that. There's actually even like an OklaRoots bundle on the website if you want to go check it out. I'll have a link down below. I have a handheld hole punch just because sometimes it's easier for me to use that. For the top thread today, which this is the thread that goes through the needle, I'm using a Tex 45 weight thread. This is from Wizardry Stitchery. The color is Fairy Floss. And then for the bobbin, I'm actually using a Gutermann thread from Joann's. I've had a few questions lately about why I don't use this in the bobbin. I will tell you because it is thicker. It has a tendency to unwind in the bobbin, causing a lot of jams. You can use it, but you have to adjust the tension of when you're winding the bobbin. It's kind of complicated, and honestly, it's just more work than I want to do. So it's just easiest for me. Top thread, I just put it up there. Bobbin, I put this Gutermann in there. The needle I'm using today is actually a Microtex 9014. I do like a thicker needle when I have a lot of layers of clear vinyl especially. However, if you're really struggling with needles sticking to the vinyl, look into getting these Schmetz Super Nonstick needles. This is a 9014 as well, and it is coated with a nonstick material so that the needle doesn't actually stick to the material. Because the material can be sticky, you gotta take precautions like using tape or using paper. You don't want to hate making this because the vinyl keeps sticking to things. You want to enjoy making this bag, right? So we're gonna take precautions with nonstick needles. Also, I like to use paper tape. I put this on the bottom of my presser foot. Just regular old Scotch tape works as well. I have some double-sided tape here. This is pretty much just to put the bag tag on. And then a couple of marking tools, a vinyl marking tool, which is a silver ink because I'm using all vinyl, and then an air erasing marking tool. I have a lighter to clean up any little loose threads. And then I have my seam ripper stiletto combo, and then my little stiletto that I keep at the sewing machine with me. And then as always, a 1 inch by 6 inch ruler and a bunch of clips. All right, so let's go through these pattern pieces. This is very, very basic. So this one over here, this is the slip pocket that I'm using today to go on the front of the bag. It is not the same measurement as in the pattern. So in the pattern, this would be pattern piece exterior pocket, okay, for the wide bag, exterior pocket. I'm using the same width for the pocket, but for the height, I cut it in half. So take the measurement for the height and the pattern and divide by 2. That's my pattern piece for this pocket. The reason I cut it in half is because I'm not folding it over. In the pattern, when you make this pocket, you actually fold it in half, wrong sides together, so you have a nice easy exterior and lining without having to sew a whole bunch of stuff together. However, I'm not doing that, so I cut it in half. If you want to use the water-resistant canvas, like I did on my first bag, just keep the pattern piece the same width and height per the pattern. Again, this is the pattern piece exterior pocket. If you want a pocket on the front and the back, cut 2 of these. I'm only cutting 1 today. Next, we have the top panel, and for the top panel, I only have my clear vinyl. Again, my clear vinyl has a paper backing on it, just like that, but I'm only using the clear vinyl for the top piece. Again, no lining for that. And then for the bottom piece here, I have 2 cuts of my exterior vinyl and 2 cuts of my water-resistant canvas. And that's it. Besides the straps and binding, that's all we got. So the only prep step I'm doing for my pocket is adding binding to the top edge. If you're using the full panel, you're going to want to fold this wrong sides together so the short edges meet, press it, top stitch along that top pressed edge, and baste along the sides to hold it together, and then move on to the next step. But for me, I actually want just to make sure that this top edge here, you can leave it like it is, but I like it looks a little bit more finished if I use a piece of binding. So I'm just gonna grab some of my binding, make sure it's longer than it needs to be, trim it down. And now what I like to do is I like to pre-fold it. So I'm gonna take my binding and fold it wrong sides together, long sides together, just to get that nice crease on the midpoint mark. That makes it just a lot easier to sew on. If you feel more comfortable, you're more than welcome to grab some double-sided tape and add it to this and then clip it in place. However, I find it's actually not that difficult to just wrap this around that top edge. The top edge of your vinyl is going to slide right into that crease, and then just clip it in place. Just make sure you add enough clips so it's not wonky or anything. You don't want it to be all wavy. We need to make sure we catch both sides when we sew this in place. Okay, so now we're going to go to the sewing machine and we're just going to top stitch right along this edge. I'm going to top stitch about 1/8 of an inch from the bottom raw edge. So you can see as I'm sewing, I'm going to keep a piece of paper just underneath the clear vinyl to prevent it from sticking to anything. I also have a little piece of paper tape just on the left side of my presser foot so that it doesn't stick as well. Once I have that sewn on, I can trim down my binding so it's the same width as my pocket. Now we want to attach our pocket to the top front panel. So you're going to grab whichever top front panel you want to pocket on and lay it right side up. Go ahead and mark a midpoint along the bottom edge. You can see I just cut a little teeny tiny slit right there. And then take your pocket right side up and also mark a midpoint right along the bottom edge of it. And now let's line these up, matching up the midpoint marks. Both pieces are right side up. So you're matching up those midpoint marks as well as that bottom edge. You can see I still have the paper on the back of my clear vinyl. I'm going to take that off in just a moment. So I'm going to remove the paper, but I do like to keep it close because I will use it underneath my vinyl as I'm sewing to prevent anything from sticking. And now we're going to take this to the sewing machine and we're going to baste along the sides and the bottom at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, that's a little tricky to do with all the clear vinyl, with the clear vinyl pocket and the clear vinyl. That was a little tricky, but we did make it happen, so that's good. So now I'm gonna flip this over, and just remember that because this is a clear bag, all of these stitches are gonna be seen in the end, except for maybe the bottom stitches here, but these will. If you notice a lot of looping, like you see the top thread looping on the back a lot, that means your tension needs to be increased. You need to make the tension on the top needle larger. Okay, so for example, my default tension number on my Bernina is like 5.75. I switch it up to like a 6.5 to make it more tension. I want this top thread to pull more on the bobbin thread, because right now, because the top thread is showing a little bit or looping a little bit on the back, that means the bobbin thread is pulling it down and it's looping. And so I need the top tension to pull it stronger again. Tension is just something that takes a lot of practice, but I want you to think about it and understand how it works. So now I'm going to just take my bobbin thread and pull it on the back side here, and then pull the top thread to the back, because again, this will be seen in the end on the inside of the bag. So I'm just going to tie this in 3 knots. So I have the bobbin thread and the top thread, and then I'll cut it down, and then I will carefully grab my lighter, and I'm pulling the material away from the thread, so my little pigtail threads here are just sticking straight out. Very gently, I'm just going to very gently boop them with the lighter and just melt them in on each other. So it looks a little cleaner that way. I'm gonna repeat that on the left side over here. Okay, so don't worry, that's not the only way this pocket's being held down. It's also gonna be held down with straps. So now let's work with strap placement. Take your clear top panel, lay it right side up, and then grab your pattern piece here. And what I like to do is I like to mark a hole. You can see we have strap lines here. Okay, there's like an outer and an inner line, because this is assuming you're using a 1-inch wide strap. We're not, I'm not anyways. So what I did was this right here, this vertical line going towards the center on the inner one, not the outer one. But this vertical line right here, that's where I want my inner strap to line up with. So that's all I'm concerned about. I'm not concerned about this second outer line, just these inner vertical lines. So match this up with your pattern piece. Grab a vinyl marking tool, and at the very top here, mark where that inner vertical line is, and then do the same thing on the bottom. Just marking the top and bottom of these inner vertical lines. I know, I keep saying that over and over again. I just want to make sure you don't mark the wrong spot. Okay, once you have those spots marked, then grab a ruler, a straight edge, something, and just line up your straight edge with both of these marks and draw a line. So I only marked on the vinyl with a silver ink pen because I can wipe that off. Now, since I'm using webbing for my straps, the only prep work I'm doing is just lighting the ends so that they don't fray. But that's it. If you want to build your own straps using some vinyl and some water-resistant canvas, I think that would be beautiful. I had intended to do that, but you know what? Webbing is just so much quicker. I love it. So grab one of your straps, set the other one to the side, and lay it, if you have a right side, lay it right side up. Let's grab a small ruler, and we're going to line up the small ruler on the bottom edge here. And what we want to do is we want the strap to overhang the bottom edge by 5/8 of an inch. So make sure your ruler is set up for you to be able to easily do that. And then the inner part of our strap is going to line up with that marked line over here on the left. And then make sure you line it up all the way to the top here. There we go. I like to use clips to hold this in place, but if you prefer to use some tape, you can put some double-sided tape underneath your strap to put it down, or you can use that paper tape to hold it in place. Don't worry about anything being too exact here. This is a bag you can make mistakes on and you're gonna be fine. Okay, so I have this strapped in place. I'm gonna rotate my strap, keeping it nice and straight. I'm gonna pull it down to the other side, and I'm going to add it down here as well, once again using my ruler here, so that I can find 5/8 of an inch down. And then I'm just gonna clip it to the bottom and the top using my marked lines. Okay, so I have my strap clipped in place. Now I need to sew it down. I'm actually gonna sew it from the bottom up until I get to the top of this pocket, and then I'm just gonna go horizontal along the same edge as my top pocket, and then back down the other side. I'm gonna do that at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance along the sides. If you wanna sew a little rectangle with a cross between it, you can definitely do that. If you wanna see a good method to do this all in one go check out the Snap and Go duffel tutorial. There is a part of there where we sew down the straps, and that's what we do. We go from the top up, make an X, and then go back down. You can use that same exact method here if you'd like. I'm only gonna be sewing up and around because I'm gonna add some rivets here to reinforce it. Totally up to you though. All right, there we go. We've got these sewn on, and now I'm gonna add a rivet. I think just one. Let me see. You can always eyeball this by grabbing your rivets. Just grabbing one of the caps. Yeah, one rivet will be fine. So I'm gonna add one rivet on the center of each of these top rectangles here that we sewed. And actually, I am gonna use the hole punch die set for my rivet press because it's gonna be easier for me to punch holes here with this rather than with the hand tool. I'm just gonna quickly insert that. And let's see, where do I want to insert my rivet? I'm gonna go 3/8 of an inch down from my top stitching horizontal mark. So I'm just looking at my top stitching right here. So 3/8 of an inch down from there, and then 3/4 of an inch in from the side, which is centered on my 1.5 inch strap. If you're using a 1 inch wide strap, then you would go 1/2 of an inch in, okay? I'm just trying to center this and make sure that it's close to the stitching, but not like right on top of it. So I'm gonna mark that same spot on my other strap here. And then all I have to do is slide this under my hole punch and punch those holes out. Now I'll grab my rivets and just insert them through the punched holes and snap in place. Rivets are nice because you can just kind of snap them together. They don't stay like that. You can't leave them like that. You do have to press them, but they'll stay like that while you're working, so you don't have to worry about them falling off and running away from you. All right. Yeah, I think that looks great. So now I'm going to grab the die set for my rivets and install that onto my rivet press. And now we'll just press these rivets into place. And there we go. We have our strap attached to one panel. So now I'm going to repeat that with my back panel. Remember, my back panel here does not have a pocket on it, but it's the exact same thing. I'm going to mark the placement for the straps in the exact same spot. I will measure this time how far down this top stitching is from the top edge so it will line up, because I want to make sure everything lines up, right? So I'll just measure that. So let me just tell you here. So my top stitching line right here that goes horizontal is 1 5/8 of an inch down from the top edge of my main panel, okay? So that's where I'll measure it and mark it on my strap as well. I'm gonna attach this strap off camera. I'm gonna add the rivets, exact same thing as I did here. All right, so once you have both of your panels ready to go on the top, we're gonna work on the bottom panels. We're gonna prep a little bit, and then we're gonna put it together. And I'm gonna tell you right now, The way we do this is we build both panels separately. So I'm going to attach the exterior and the lining to the front panels first. And then I'm actually going to box each panel separately, and then I sew it all together. If that seems a little confusing to you, just watch through this first before you sew along with me. So the first thing I want to do is prep things. I want to make sure I have the midpoint marked on the bottom of each of my top panels. And then I also want to mark the midpoint mark on the top of each of my exterior bottom panels. You don't have to do it with the lining, just the exterior bottom panels. Go ahead and mark the top midpoint mark on those. Honestly, this part is optional too because it lines up perfectly, but I still like to have my midpoints marked. Okay, and then the last prep step I want is to add my bag tag to the bottom panel here. I will tell you we have a big seam allowance. I'm going to follow the pattern when I sew this together later, and it is a 5/8 inch seam allowance, which is pretty big. So when I'm attaching my bag tag, I need to think about that. So 5/8 of an inch down from there is like that, and I want it to be lower. So I'm going to install my bag tag centered on my bottom panel, and I'm going to have my bag tag 1.5 inches down from the top edge. So this is where some double-sided tape is handy, just a little piece. And now I'm just going to go top stitch this tag down at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance along all 4 edges. All right, we've got our bottom panels ready, lining panels, top panels. Let's start with the front panel. So my front panel is going to be the top panel that has the pocket, and then the bottom panel that has the tag, and then I'll take one lining piece in just a moment. So I'm going to lay my top panel right side up, and I'm going to take my bottom panel and make sure you understand how these go together, okay, just like that. And I'm going to flip my bottom panel right side down, so it's right sides together with the top, lining up those bottom and top edges together, and then clip in place. Okay, and now you can go based along this clipped edge at 1/4 inch seam allowance if you'd like, but I'm actually not going to. I feel like with this, I don't really need to. So what I'm going to actually do is I have this clipped together. I'm going to flip it over so I'm looking at the back side now of my top clear vinyl. And then I'm going to take one of my lining panels, and again, always kind of see how it's going to go first, like this. And I'm going to lay my lining panel right side down along the back of my clear vinyl, and I'm just going to add it to the clips. There we go. So now I have a nice little sandwich here. I have the exterior down here, the clear vinyl, and then the lining. And now I'm going to sew along this clipped edge at a 5/8 inch seam allowance, making sure to backstitch at the beginning and the end. And if you don't want to sew at a 5/8 inch seam allowance, you don't have to. You could do a 3/8 inch seam allowance. I think that'd be fine too. Just make sure whatever you do on one panel, you do the same thing on the other panel. So now what I want to do is trim down the corners of my seam allowance because those can get very bulky later when we're sewing it all together. Here we go. Leave these strap ends long like they are. And now we're going to pull the lining and the exterior bottom panels back, wrong sides together to meet each other. And what I like to do, especially with this thicker material, is I'm just going to pull the box corners together first. I'm going to focus on the raw edges before I focus on this more difficult edge up here. Now let's flip this so we're looking at the front, the exterior right side. Let's clip along this bottom edge. And then I'm just going to kind of pull up here, flatten out that top raw edge, and clip. Do the same thing on the bottom here. Now I'm just going to kind of pull it all and press it with my fingers. And depending on your vinyl, it might press a little bit. Like mine is pressing pretty nicely and staying somewhat flat, so that's great. Or it might just bubble right back up. But the nice thing about this is with all this clipped like this, you can pull it like this as you're top stitching. Because now what we want to do is we want to go to the sewing machine and we want to top stitch right along this bottom edge on the bottom vinyl here at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, there we go. How cute is that? This bag is gonna look so good. I know, it was gonna look so good. So now we're gonna repeat that with the back panel, and I'll walk you through this because I have to do it anyways. So once again, upper panel, right side up, bottom panel, right side up. Flip them so that they are right sides together then. Match up the midpoint marks and the corners and clip together. And now you can base this or just grab your lining and lay it right side down, matching it up, mirroring it to the exterior panel. Just make sure it's right side to the back side of the top panel and add it to the clips. And now let's sew along this bottom clipped edge at a 5/8 inch seam allowance. Once those are sewn together, trim down the corners, just like this. Just makes it easier when we sew these main panels together to have thinner corners there. And then pull the exterior and lining wrong sides together. I just love all these colors together. They are just making me so happy. And once again, I like to clip the corners of the box corners together first, and then the bottom edge, and then finally I'll pull it all together and press along the seam. And now let's take this to the sewing machine and just top stitch along the bottom panel at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, now that we have these panels ready to go, I'm gonna show you how I box the corners. It might seem a little odd, but it does make it so that I don't have to put binding on the boxed corners part. So I'm just gonna show you, it works for me. Give it a try, don't give it a try, up to you. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna first separate my lining and exterior panels. I'm gonna start with my exterior panel, and I'm gonna fold my exterior panel along that box corner. So corner to corner, folding them right sides together. This should all line up just perfectly. And I'm gonna add a clip here. And I'm gonna add a clip down here on the fold to hold it together. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other exterior. And then I'm gonna flip this over, and I'm gonna repeat that with the lining. So again, just folding it, right sides together, corner to corner, and clipping on this little fold over here. Doing this for both sides. I'm gonna go ahead and just repeat that for the front panel. All right, now I'm gonna take both of my panels to the sewing machine, and I'm gonna sew along all of these little boxed raw edges at a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and make sure you backstitch at the beginning and the end each time we're doing the exterior and the lining, both panels. All right, so if you want, you can just kind of test this out. So pop out the corners on the exterior, so it's like this, and then pop in the corners on the interior, and you see, now it's boxed, it's half boxed. I thought it was pretty cool. Now, if you want, you can baste these together. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So what I'm gonna do is along the seams over here, where the exterior and the lining come together, I'm just gonna wrap them in opposite directions and match them up at their seam first and add a clip there. Do the same thing on the other side. Just opposite directions and always clip the seams first, and then go ahead and straighten out the sides and the bottom to get this all lined up and clipped together. There we go. I'm gonna repeat this with the other panel. Okay, so once I have both of these clipped, the exterior and the linings wrong sides together, looks so cute. I'm gonna just baste along these bottom clipped edges at 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Alrighty, so now we have both of our panels. I know it's kind of weird to like have them pre-boxed, right? But it works. So look how beautiful this is. I'm so excited about this. I have not added the magnetic snaps yet. I'm gonna add those in a little bit. Honestly, you can save those to the very end because you can decide at the very end if you want to even use them. So maybe we'll do that. We'll just wait till the very end. But now we're gonna sew these together. So we're going to just kind of pop out the corners so that they're popped out to the lining side. It's just gonna make it a little bit easier to do that. And now take your main panels and lay them right sides together just like that. I like to match them up at their seams with their bottom edges first. And when you're doing these seams here, you can start to see why it was nice for us to cut down those corners, because it gets bulky depending on what type of vinyl you're using, what type of clear vinyl you're using. These can get bulky down here. So clipping them down really helps. So I clip those together first, and then I'm going to go to the box corners and clip the seams for the box corners together. There we go. Now I'm just gonna clip everything else. So I'll go up to the corners here, clip those together. Okay, once we have it all clipped together, I'm gonna sew along the entire clipped edge at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. That's the seam allowance I like to use because my binding is gonna work well with the 3/8 inch seam allowance. So 3/8 inch seam allowance all the way around. Make sure you backstitch up here at the top. And just be careful. The sewing up here is the most difficult part. Sewing on the bottom is going to be easy. Sewing up at the top, because we have so much clear vinyl, this is going to want to stick to your presser foot. The bottom's going to want to stick to the table. If at any point you're sewing and you feel your bag twisting on you or it's pulling, just stop. Just make sure that's the one thing. Always just stop. Don't just like push down harder on the pedal and see if you can make it work, because all you're gonna do is end up sewing somewhere you don't want to. So just lots of pauses, take your time on this part. All right, how did that go? I did have to retape because once I was going over this bottom edge, the tape just came off. So always keep tape next to you. If you have to retape, retape. Check everything, make sure you didn't sew your straps in on accident or anything. Everything looks good. So now I'm gonna add binding. If you don't wanna add binding, you don't have to, but I do recommend it. It looks very nice. And if you're using this pre-made water-resistant binding, it's pretty much just a long strip of material that's 1 inch wide. So what I like to do is I like to pre-fold it, just like I did with the pocket. So I just do a section, pre-folding it in half, wrong sides together, long sides together. And this is almost like a lightweight paper. It folds very easily and it'll stay folded. Super easy to work with. And once you have a good section of it done, we're gonna take it and we're gonna start at the top edge, and you can let it overhang a little bit because we can trim it down. And we're just gonna wrap it around that edge and clip in place. So I'm gonna go around the whole edge here, clipping it together. And then once I get to the very end, I like to let it overhang just a bit like that. So now I'm gonna go sew this binding on. I'm gonna top stitch it on anywhere between 1/4 to a 3/8 inch seam allowance. If you do a 1/4 inch seam allowance, the binding can lift up a little bit and you can still see the stitches that you made to sew the bag initially. If you do a 3/8 inch seam allowance, you might go right over those original stitches, which gets a little iffy with clear vinyl. You don't want to have too many stitches in the same spot over and over again. So I kind of go right between 1/4 and 3/8 of an inch, and I use a top stitching length. All right, once you have that sewn on, just make sure you check the back and that you caught all the raw edges. Looks good. So now I'm going to trim down this top edge here. So now if you'd like, you can flip this out real quick. Let's just flip it out and take a look at it. My arms are tired, but we'll just flip it out real fast to take a look. And if you're ever struggling with clear vinyl, grab a hairdryer and just blast it with some heat for just a few seconds and then turn it, and you'll find it's a lot easier. Alrighty, that's looking good, isn't it? And it's nice flat bottom and everything. Looks great, love it. So the last step before the magnetic snap is to put binding around the top edge. I would say this is probably one of the trickiest steps, but I'm gonna walk you through it. First, I'm gonna flip this back again so that it's inside out. All right, so we're gonna add the binding to the top edge just like we've added it everywhere else by first giving it a little pre-fold. Now I'm gonna start over here on one of the sides, and I'm just gonna turn the bounded seam to the side, and I'm going to wrap my binding over that seam and clip in place. And so I'm wrapping it over the top edge of my clear vinyl, and I'm also folding the seam to the side and adding my binding on top of that as well. This is kind of tricky, so make sure you tuck in your handles because you don't want to accidentally sew over those. I'm just going to go around the entire top edge of this bag, folding and clipping the binding in place. Okay, once we get this overlapping, let the end of your binding overlap by about 1 inch and then cut it off. And now I'm going to take this end piece of my binding and I'm going to fold it down anywhere between 3/8 of an inch and 1/2 of an inch. And then I'm going to trim down the corners just like that. Then I'm going to go to my starting piece of binding over here, and I'm just going to trim down the corners off of that one as well. Nothing exact, just trimming the corners down so they don't poke out. Then reattach that starting edge of your binding. Here we go. And now continue wrapping your binding around the top edge, letting it overlap where you started, and keep that short edge that you folded under. That way you just don't have any little raw bits right there. It's not a big deal if you do keep it raw. I mean, the whole bottom edge of the binding is raw, but it just looks nice. Okay, so now this part is a little tricky because you are sewing a curved, bit here, and you have clear vinyl that wants to stick to the machine. It's a little tricky. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna sew it with the exterior of the bag inside so that I can sew just like this underneath my machine. And I'm gonna sew this binding down, top stitching it at a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Again, go slow, use your piece of paper underneath your clear vinyl to make sure it doesn't stick, and just take your time here. try. In my opinion, that's the hardest part because it just fights you so much while you're trying to do it. You just have a lot of things fighting. You have this like stiff bag that doesn't want to get out of the way. You have the straps that keep trying to join the party. You have the sticky vinyl that just wants to stay in one place. So it's a lot of things kind of coming at you at the same time. But if you go slow, focus on getting everything smooth and lined up, you should be good. So now I'm going to turn this back right side out. Oh man, look how stinky. You guys, this might be one of my favorite bags I've ever made. This bag is so cute. I really like that we stuck with the clear vinyl and then just went wild with everything else. With the straps, with the base, with the lining. I mean, this is a cool bag, guys. I hope you really like making it. You guys, this bag is so good. I love it so much. Look how cute this is. Oh, we forgot the snaps, didn't we? Okay, you know what? I'll just show you how to do the snaps this way. So, you can see right now it does not have a snap. Let me see my other bag. So on this bag with the snap, I do feel like the snap is a little too low. I wanted to raise it up 1/2 inch. So let's see where that takes us. Okay, so we want to do 1 inch down centered. So all you have to do, if you want to add a magnetic snap, I don't know if I do want to add a, yeah, let's do it. So take the side seams, pull them together, and then just pinch along the top here because we're trying to find those midpoints. Grab some sort of a air erasing marker, something like that, and just mark a point there. Don't use your scissors. You know, sometimes we mark midpoints with scissors. Not here. Not on a finished edge, okay? So I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm just going to pull the seams together like that. And then pinch along this back panel. Make a mark. Okay, and then I'm going to use that mark in a little ruler here. And all I'm going to do is measure down 1 inch. Sometimes it's easier to use the long bit of the ruler. I'm going to measure down 1 inch. And then I'm going to use my silver marking pen. This is why I have a lot of different pens. It's very helpful. And I'm going to mark a dot. So my dot is centered on my panel and 1 inch down from the top edge. I mean, you can see just how easy this is. So I'm doing this for both the front and the back panels. And you probably can't see anything I'm doing, can you? I don't know if you can see the mark. Not sure if you can see that mark right there, but there is a little silver mark there. So I'm going to grab my hole punch. And I'm just going to punch out the hole right where that mark is. You see, this is very easy. If you want to use your standing hole punch, your rivet press, you can do that too. This is just, I would suggest if you make a lot of bags, you have a tool like this. Because a lot of times it's just easier. All right, the next step is to grab your magnetic snap. Now remember, magnetic snap, one side is the magnet, the other side is a little rivet, okay? I don't think it matters if the male or female end goes on either side. Just make sure that the magnet goes on the inside of the bag. Don't put the magnet on the outside of the bag. The magnet part goes on the inside of the bag. The rivet part goes on the outside of the bag. And make sure you have a male and female end so that it will snap together. And if you are using the rivet magnet snaps, you're going to have a die set with 3 dies. You're going to have 2 different bottom dies and 1 top die. The top die goes with the rivet side, and then the bottom dies are going to be the opposite of whatever snap you're using. So you can just slide it in, push it down. All right, I got them pressed in there. Nothing fancy. Let's pinch it. That looks nice too, though. It does look nice when it's snapped together. So the snap is totally optional, but I know a lot of people do like a closure on the top of their bag, so that is an option. I love how this looks. Isn't that, you could have so much fun with this. And who here has too much clear vinyl? Me. So this is a great way to kind of eat up a lot of your clear vinyl, because I know for me, I'm kind of like swimming in clear vinyl at my house. I got a little carried away buying it, and I'm just like, what am I gonna do with all this clear vinyl? I can make a bunch of these tote bags because they're adorable and they're perfect for summer. So have fun with this. I hope you love it. If you go ahead and make one of these, let me know. If you have another clear tote bag pattern that you love, let me know. I'm in the market for lots of clear bags, so let me know your patterns. I hope you're having a great day. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Get out there and make something. Bye, guys.